World's briefest self-introduction. My name is Joshua. I'm actually originally from Hawaii, but outside the USA now for a good 21, 22 years. I'm currently based in Hong Kong, but I do this kind of workshop all over the place, mostly internally at companies and at nonprofits. Last year did this in 35 plus countries virtually, 2019, 25 plus countries face-to-face, mostly working with Fortune 100s and nonprofits all over the place. I do a lot of this virtual facilitation as well. We actually wrote a book on it called Radically Remote with my team. And I also, if anyone's familiar with Miro, which embeds nicely within SpatialChat, I do a lot of work with them. I'll actually be talking at their distributed conference this year for the 4th year in a row. So yeah, so that's me. That's enough about me. But today I'm actually going to be chatting and trying to get to know you. And we're really going to be talking about how we can explore conversations and in particular influence and collaboration in virtual spaces. This is not going to be a main stage TED Talk the whole time for those of you who just joined in. We've just got about 5 minutes of setting the stage, and then we're going to head to the breakout once we got everybody here, and we're going to actually get to try some things on. So first off, just in the chat, I'd love to hear your definitions. How would you define influence? What is influence? How would you define it? How would you just type it in the chat? Any definition's a good one. What is influence? How would you define it? I'll give you about 10 more seconds on that. No Googling. Googling is cheating. But how would you define influence? Change people without power, impacting others, shaping directions, have an effect, the possibility of change. Yeah, and these are good definitions. Behavior of other persons. I'm loving this. These are all great. Ability to persuade. These are all great definitions, and only a few of them coming from ChatGPT, but these are all great definitions. And they're very much aligning with sort of the Cambridge definition, this idea of to cause someone to change a behavior, a belief, an opinion, or to cause something to be changed. What I am happy is that the vast majority of the definitions are relatively positive that you've given. Every once in a while, when I do this kind of workshop, people think about manipulation and they're like, aha, you're going to teach us how to trick people to agree with us. And I need to emphasize, like Randy says, and Yohei says, interest for others and meaningful connection are key to this. This is not about manipulation. Not just because it's not ethical, but even if you were not ethical, even if you're like, ethics, I don't care about ethics, even then, research doesn't actually support manipulation as a long-term strategy. Basically, you might be able to fool someone 1 or 2 times, but the reality is you're not going to be able to consistently able to do it. So when we're talking about influence and the recipe for influence, it really is mutual problem solving. Half of good influence is coming from me. It's coming from what I'm bringing to the table, okay? But the other half of good influence is actually in the minds of the people that I'm talking to. And if I'm going to use all of the ingredients for good influence, I don't just want to use what's in my head. I need to be able to access and work with what's going on in the minds of my audience. Excellent. That's good, Aaron. So that's what we're going to be trying to do today. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'll give you a hint. Quick question. Would you like to live in this apartment building? Would you like to live here? Let me show you the outside as well. This is the apartment building. It's called the Reversible Destiny Lofts. Would you like to live here? Yes, no, or maybe if it was free. Those are your options. Yes, no, or maybe if it was free. That's the inside. There's a yes. We got some thumbs up, some clapping for it. They're totally yeses. Thank you very much. Yes, no, maybe if it was free. Got a bunch, yeah, too tight. Yeah, totally understand. So we got some yeses. So this, by the way, I'd love to ask you, who do you think the intended audience for this is? Who do you think it's built for? Who's it built for? Last time I did this, somebody said it was built for artists. Another person said it was built for, someone said kids, children, singles, SpongeBob SquarePants. That's beautiful. It is in Japan. Sayaki, you are spot on correct. It is in Japan. Yes, this is in Japan. And in fact, this was not built for any of those. It was actually built for the elderly. This is a retirement home in Japan, and it was built because research. Yeah, exactly. It is in Japan, Yohei. You can actually go visit it if you wanted to. There's an Airbnb in it. But this was built for the elderly, and it was built because researchers in Japan found that cognitive decline, basically how our brains age. It was faster in more traditional retirement homes. But if you put people in kind of challenging and unique spaces, exactly, score your ticket keys, it caused them to age a lot slower. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to go out and renovate your office, renovate your house, anything like that. But I would agree with the idea that we shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us. Or as Priya Parker says, the way we gather matters. So when we're having meetings, when we're having conversations, it's really critical how we are shaping our spaces, how we are shaping those dialogues for growth, for collaboration, for problem solving, versus shaping them around you are the problem. Because there's a big difference between problem solving and you are the problem, and we can really change the dialogue to get there. So the last thing I'm going to show you before we go into the breakout room all together, and if anyone's done like Zoom breakout rooms, this is very different. If you're familiar with SpatialChat, you know what's going to happen next. If you're not familiar with SpatialChat, please don't panic. I will give you very clear directions on how to get where we're going to next. So, don't worry, don't panic. But we got one more thing to share with you before we dive into that breakout. So basically today, we're going to be exploring something called the conversation map. And this is a tool for understanding where you are in a dialogue. Obviously, if I'm trying to collaborate, innovate, influence, it's going to differ between culture, context, and character, the situation you're in, the culture you're in, individual differentiation. Lots of things can be different. But underneath all of that is this map. How you move around the map is going to differ from person to person, situation to situation, but the map itself is the same. You can either in a conversation be putting your ideas out there, so storytelling and persuading. Oftentimes, though, you do that in a meeting and somebody, whether it's internal or external, they go, I understand you, but that's a nice idea, but they kind of zoom on in there and they just zoom on over into the red zone, that blocking zone there. And so the question is, how do we get out of this red zone? How do we get out of here? And most people, what they try to do is if they don't run away, they just try to go back to the yellow zone. I understand you, but let me give you a bunch more information. And what we end up with is a conversation that just bounces between red and yellow, red and yellow, red and yellow, parallel monologues, but very little real dialogue. Famous quote on this from Stephen Covey. He says, most people don't listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Most people are just waiting for their turn to talk. So we're going to try to get beyond that today and explore in our breakout how we can actually get up to the blue zone and not just work with our ingredients, that yellow stuff, but also work with the ingredients of our audience, which is all that stuff in the blue, as well as together coming to the problem-solving green, okay? So that's what we're going to do today. And to do that, I'm actually going to take all of us into the breakout. So in your screen, at the top, there should be a thing that says show rooms. It's at the far right-hand corner. You'll see right next to where the little chat icon is at the top, there's a little thing that looks like a human being, like a person. So there's basically like a calendar icon, a chat icon, and a human being icon. If you check on that human being icon, what you're going to see is we've got a couple of different rooms there. There's the stage, which is where we are now, and it literally says start here. But we've also got the Moving Minds Breakout A. We also have B and C. We're not going to use B and C because thankfully we did not end up with more than 50 people. We ended up with 28. So in just a moment, on the count of 3 actually, I'm going to ask you to click on Moving Minds Breakout A. I see some people already did it. On the count of 3, click on Moving Minds Breakout A. 1, 2, 3, click. Click on that. I will meet you there in 10 seconds. I see almost everybody going there. I'll see you there in 10 seconds. If you get stuck, don't worry. One of the SpatialChat people will be here in the main room, and they can direct you to the place we want to go. And the reason why you can hear me is because I am using the megaphone at the bottom, so it doesn't matter how far away you are from me. What you should be seeing all around you is you also are getting to see lots of those little bubbles. If you're familiar with SpatialChat, 10-second revision of this. When your bubble gets close to somebody else's bubble, you actually can talk to them. Simple as that. When your bubble gets close to someone else's bubble, it enables you to hear them, talk to them, all that kind of stuff. If you're far away from other people's bubbles, you can't hear them. But if you go close to someone's bubble, you can hear them, talk to them, all that kind of stuff. But with my megaphone, I can just blast over all of you and selfishly control the conversation. So let me walk you through what we are about to do, to start with, if I can direct your attention to the nice blue square that says, how are you feeling now? How are you feeling now? And I would actually like to know, how are you feeling now? If you click on that, it's the very famous Nicolas Cage metric for understanding how you're feeling now, because I just would like to know where you are at in your head, how you're feeling now. Just take about 30 seconds on that. All right, I see a bunch of people already doing it, which is good. How are you feeling today? So please do click on it. I got a couple people doing that. Let me just screen share it on up here just so you can all see it. But if you double click, so by the way, with Spatial Chat, any of those kind of boxed objects, if you can't interact with them, all you need to do is double click on them. If you double click on them, it will very, very clearly let you work on it. And I can actually show you what that looks like very simply. Let me just make sure I got my tabs open correctly. On up, our nice little thing here. You can see that we've got some people going carefree, a couple people feeling meh. Always a good emotion to be feeling there. If you double clicked on that, you are able to see that nicely. All right, so stop sharing that. So moving on around, what we're about to do is we're about to explore the conversation map. So to do so, what I would like you to do, very, very simply, is I would like you right now to think about a place that you think it would be great to have a company offsite. Somewhere really unique and interesting. Really unique and interesting is the emphasis. Very, very unique and interesting. And I'd like you to think about that right now. Please do type it in the chat when you've got your idea. Unique company offsite, a really unique location for a company offsite. When you've got the idea for your location, just type it in the chat. Japanese retirement home, thank you, Adam. Somewhere in Hawaii. Danny, I'm very biased about that. Mountains in Austria. All right. Good. Iceland. Good choice, Maria. I like the exclamation mark. That's why I got to say it with the emphasis. So a unique location for a company offsite. All right. Cool. So what I'm going to ask you to do now, very, very simple, is you'll look around the board. If you look around the board, we've got a whole bunch of, well, for lack of a better word, we got a bunch of little campsites. These are lovely, lovely, lovely little campsites. And with these lovely little campsites, I would like you to park yourself at a campsite. I'd like you to park yourself at a campsite. Some of them are listed as private areas. If it's a private area, that means nobody can hear what's going on inside that square. But I'd love you to park yourself at a campsite. And at that campsite, what I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to discuss with your partners is I would like you to have a debate as to which of your choices is the best. So in groups of 2, 3, maximum like 4 people at a campsite, get close to a small group of people, and I would like you to debate with them. Imagine you're having like an annual planning meeting. So we're planning our company offsite, and you're just going to have about 3-4 minutes to debate what is going to be our company offsite. Now note, you're free to move around the board however you like. If you drag yourself around the board, it moves you nicely around. But if you're not near anybody, no one's going to be able to hear you. Of course, if you have your audio and your video off, no one can hear you also. So please definitely make sure that you've got your audio on at least, even if you don't have your video on, and bring your nice little circle next to somebody else at a campsite and just take about 3-4 minutes, and we're going to have a debate. Introduce yourselves briefly, but have a little debate. What is the best place to have a company offsite? And in about 4 or 5 minutes maximum, we're going to come back to the center, and I will bug you again. And we are going to have a slightly larger debate. I don't want to tell you the next step yet, okay? So if you could please go to a campsite now, and I'm going to remove myself from the megaphone. Good luck. go to a campsite. All right, so I know that I'm rudely cutting in and interrupting all of your conversations right now. Terribly, terribly sorry. And we could give you a heck of a lot more time to chat with your partners about amazing destinations. I was listening in on a couple of the rooms, but I actually would like to bring you back together. And what I'd like actually is I'd love to get, now that you've warmed your brains up, I'd love to get about two volunteers, maybe three maximum. If you could type hi in the chat if you would like to volunteer. Hi in the chat if you would like to volunteer. Just so you know what you're volunteering for. You're not volunteering for anything completely ridiculous. We're going to be asking you to be on the stage with us. And when you're on stage with us, we're going to have you do a mini version of that debate you just had with your breakouts. So if I could get just, hi, we got Oscar. Thank you. I knew I could rely on Oscar dialing in from Llama Island. Fantastic. We got Oscar. Anybody else who would like to debate against Oscar? Danny from SpatialChat. That's all we got. I'm seating the audience. We got two. We got room for one more if anybody else wants to join. Otherwise, two is enough. And we got Pinky. So fantastic. Oscar, Danny, and Pinky. Now, for the next step, Oscar, Danny, and Pinky, at the bottom of your screen, you should see that nice little toolbar. It's got your camera thing. It's got your microphone thing. And next to the microphone, it's got the thing that says megaphone. And now, we don't want you doing this all the time, but for this next activity, if you could please click on that megaphone button, because that way everyone's going to be hearing you. Could you please click on that and just say a quick hello, just so I know it's working for you?
Hello, Josh.
Hello.
There we are. Oh, we got another one. We got Dirk as well. Just popped up. There it does. It worked. Fantastic. And so fantastic. This is good. So what's going to happen is these three wondrous human beings are going to be having an excellent little debate as to which is the best offsite location. It's a very simple influence scenario because this is a very short workshop today. And in that debate, in that discussion, what I'd like the rest of you to do is if you take a look at that beautiful conversation map that we've got, which is at the top middle of your screen. If you take a look at that beautiful conversation map that you've got at the top middle of your screen, you should see.
Sorry, Josh. I think your megaphone turned off, so we didn't hear you.
My megaphone. Apologies for that. Sorry, I just turned off my megaphone because I went to grid view. Sorry about that. But I went to grid. Yeah, megaphone only works in main room view, not in grid view. Sorry about that. I've had a long day. I always forget about that. So anyways, so what we've got here is we've got our very, very nice conversation map with the 4 boxes. If I could have everybody else hover near those boxes. So come towards those boxes, move your avatar towards those boxes. Everybody come on towards those boxes. Come on towards, I see y'all moving there. Look at that. Just follow where the birds are flying. Follow where they're flying. Great. So as you listen to the conversation between Pinky, Oscar, and Danny, I want you to move your avatar. Keep yourself muted, but I want you to physically move your avatar where you think they are in the conversation. Are they trying to persuade others? Are they blocking each other? Are they actually trying to understand each other, or are they mutual problem solving? Now, if you get stuck, what I'm also going to have turned on in the background, which is super fun, is right next to the conversation map, you should see a nice little transcript thing. And if you double click on that thing, it says note. It says note on it, and it's got like a Google Play, Apple, Android store on it. If you double click on it and scroll down, what you're actually going to see is the live conversation of what's going on here, word by word, what people are actually saying. Although there is a slight delay, but it does actually pop on up. So, anyways, you'll actually get to see what people are saying, although it does take a little while. Yeah, thank you for drawing the arrow there. Thank you, Tina. Much obliged. Exactly, that's where it is. Thank you very much. All right, so Danny, Pinky, and Oscar, we are going to have you have this beautiful, beautiful debate in just a moment. Thank you, Tina, for pointing it out to Randy. Yes, fantastic. So yeah, please get ready. Danny, Pinky, and Oscar, are you ready to go?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Pinky, where are you from?
I'm gonna quiet myself. Good luck. Go.
Good. Hi, Danny. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Brazil, so it's early in the morning here.
Good.
You're calling from Hong Kong, right?
Yes, correct. So, what do you think about the best offside? And Pinky as well. See somewhere. Hold on. Pinky, where are you calling from?
Sorry, I'm currently in Dhaka, but I'm from India, staying in Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Right, so we got all continents almost. Pinky, what do you think?
I believe there is a place in India which is in the state of Jharkhand. It's called Bokar Steel City. It's really a green place and it's a very cool place with lots of small mountains, greeneries. And that place is surrounded by different communities who are the indigenous people. And the place itself has a flavor of cosmopolitan. People from different areas of India are there for the steel plant, but the surrounding areas have a lot different communities. So there are lots of scope to work for those communities and explore the resources around that specific area and try to work for the community at a greater extent, starting from economic empowerment, health, environment, livelihood, education, etc.
So you like nature, right?
Great, yeah. I like nature and the other resources which are there.
What about you, Randy? Oh, Danny, sorry.
I was actually also thinking about places close to the nature. I have randomly picked up Hawaii as a first step, as a first spot, but I mean, I just barely did any research on that. Yeah, not that random, maybe. Yeah, but I agree that in my view, the ideal offsite would be somewhere close to the nature, somewhere close to the water, so where we can recharge a bit, where we can actually interact with other species, non-human species. Yeah, where we can also explore some small communities. I actually like the way Pinky described the place that you can interact with indigenous people, because I think it's very helpful for us as people living in the big cities to see how other people organize their lifestyle. Yeah, because for me, on-site is kind of the main goal of the on-site is a refreshment. So you need to put yourself in a very different conditions that you get to use work in your day-to-day life, and then you get inspired by something that later you can embed in your lifestyle. So what about you, Oscar? You're living in a pretty nature place already on the Lama Island,
yeah.
Right?
So I'm gonna be a bit of the contrarian, because I won't go for nature, but I probably would go for nurture in a sense. And I spoke to other people about this. From experience, the best offsite experience I've ever had were our weekly happy hours, and they were basically just around the corner in a city. So I think people were, from my experience, very relaxed after work, which was unorganized. So yeah, that's the experience I have. Of course, it's very subjective, but the weekly happy hours just around the corner from work have been the best offsites I experienced.
This is the world's most polite debate.
Oh, is it a debate, Josh?
It's there can be only one choice. Of those three, what are we going to choose?
Right.
I will go with Pinky option. I like how it sounds.
You're already persuaded by Pinky's option.
Yeah.
Work debates were this beautiful. You'll notice, by the way, if anybody's looking and keeping track of where people are, you'll notice everybody's hanging out in storytelling and persuading. There's not much blocking going on other than Oscar's brief contrarian perspective. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, so I'm just gonna pause. I'm gonna pause it there and give like Pinky and Oscar and Danny a big virtual clap on that. Please use your lovely emojis to give them a big virtual clap on that. That was lovely. So what I want to share here is going a bit meta, going a little bit behind the scenes here in some of the things that we can actually do with this. Now, obviously, this conversation is not as complex as a real dialogue you might have with your teams, but what I wanted to use it for was to illustrate some of the tools that we can actually use to make dialogue visible. As you can see on that nice little transcript that's going on, you can actually see word by word. So what I've done is I've taken Otter, which is it's a live transcription tool. It's used with Zoom, with Google Meets, with Teams and stuff like that. And I have taken Otter and I've been able to use it so that it's actually capturing the audio in this room. Don't worry, I'm going to click pause on it in a moment because I don't want it to capture any of you. But what it's doing here is it's mapping out and making the dialogue visible. So we can actually see what's going on and we can use that then to actually explore more deeply. So if I was going to explore more deeply, and let me actually pause it. You're going to see the transcript pause now because I'm actually going to click pause on the recording. There it is. It's all paused. And what I could actually do is I could take that dialogue, and I'm actually going to take that dialogue, and let me just screen share and show you what I'm going to do with it. I'm actually going to take that dialogue, and I am going to pop it into... I'm going to pop it into a nice little spatial chat board, and I just pasted it in there. So here's my dialogue, and it's in Joshua now. It's Joshua colored now. And so what I'm actually going to do with this in just a moment is I'm actually going to go over, and it has the ability to share in a nice little iframe. And so I'll copy that beautiful iframe there. And I will go to the iframe embed option on our lovely page here. It's now loaded. And so what you could actually do, I'm going to lock it to the page now so it doesn't go flying all over the place. If you double click on that, you actually can go in and you can actually literally make comments on it. So what we would do with a dialogue where we were trying to map out a better dialogue and create more awareness about it is we would actually go and look for pivot points within the conversation. Basically looking at points in the conversation where it went in different directions. And because whatever you go in with, it's going to actually give you a different color automatically. So if I'm typing now, you'll see a bunch of stuff coming in. Feel free, everybody, double click on that. Just type any random stuff you want. But what we can actually do is actually literally go back and collaboratively go back and actually edit the document to look at where our sales pitches went in a good direction, where they went in a bad direction, where we lost the threads of collaboration, where things fell apart. So basically looking at that conversation map that we were looking at, rather than just hypothetically talking about it, we can actually see where the dialogue's going. We've got the live transcription there. We're able to take that and collaboratively look at it. And what teams do this for is if a team is having dysfunctions, or if a sales team is trying to simulate what a better conversation might be like, in a sales conversation, this is a really great way to bring the dialogue completely to the surface, and actually from there be able to go through and truly look at how we could actually move it into different directions. So it's just one of my absolute favorite tools for being able to explore dialogue and make it more visible. Because ultimately, if we look at the dialogue, and let me actually screen share that on up for you so you can see it more easily. So the embed tool is available to admins or any super users that you actually put on there. So in this case, this is available to admins. So that's a very, very good question there. But as soon as you are an admin, so in the bottom, like for example, in the bottom corner of your board, if you look down there where you got the emojis and all the other fun stuff, that whole fun area down there, if you go down there, you also have a little plus symbol. And on that plus symbol, it gives you control and the ability to actually do certain things. In this case, we haven't given you the ability for everything, but in terms of room permissions, we've given you the ability to use pens, let me see, what are all the permissions I've given you on this one? I'm trying to take a look here. Danny, do you remember all the permissions I've given on people on here? You can add notes, you can upload some things. I have not given you the ability to do your own embeds because it's going to get way too messy. But if you want to add GIFs and other things like that, it allows you to do that. I can see Sandrine is using the pen tool, for example. So again, similar to this, you can take documents and collaboratively mark them up. And what we use this for, again, is to make the conversation visible, because that's really the critical aspect of what we're talking about here. And let me actually screen share up what I mean by that. Oh, someone in the chat real quick. What's in the chat? Give me 1 second. I'm trying to screen share and look at the chat. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Randy. Yeah, that's what the tool is. Boom. All right. So let me just share on up our lovely window with our dialogue here. And I'll screen share that up. It's going to pop up in the middle. And I can make it as big as I would like. Of course, you all can zoom on into it. But what we've got here is, if we go through this nice little dialogue that's going on here, I'm going to move myself. So we're going on in here. If you go through this, you can actually see oh, come on. Where'd my dialogue go? I just had it. Oh, sorry. That's the wrong one. I should probably choose the correct one. That would be a good idea. Probably should choose the correct one. There we are. So coming on down here, we can begin to see the different speakers. We got speaker 3, speaker 4, calling from Brazil. So Danny is speaker 4, calling from. Let's see, calling from there. Speaker 5 is going to be Pinky coming on in there. And what we can actually watch is the actual back and forth. So she's putting out this thing. She's putting out this information right here. It's a place in India. I've actually been there. So Mujhe Taratara India Te. Beautiful, beautiful place. But it's, really interesting going on down through here. And so the question is, what does the next speaker do with this? And in general, a lot of times what happens in a dialogue is we're not really listening. We're just check listening. We're just barely listening to what's put out there. We basically are going, I understand you, but that's a nice idea, but. And so we get Danny coming in. So you like nature. It's great. Yeah, I like nature. So it's not really working with what we're given, which is those ingredients there, which is why when you looked at the actual conversation map, almost everybody was like, yeah, you're in the yellow zone. You're in the yellow zone. I want to make a note. This was a very friendly dialogue, Oscar, Pinky, and Danny, but there wasn't really a lot of efforts to go up to the blue zone. We weren't really trying to take the conversation to a place that was beyond just this basic back and forth dialogue. And it's a real challenge because, as Covey famously said, people are not willing to understand until they feel understood, meaning that until people really feel that you've truly understood their side of the dialogue and worked with those ingredients, it's very unlikely that they're actually going to want to go somewhere with you. So really what I want to share with you as sort of the last piece that we can explore, and then we'll answer some questions and discuss some other things, is there's really 5 basic techniques that we can actually look at that will really help to take this conversation in a better direction. And if we look at the dialogue here, we did not see that happening, but we would like to see it happening were we to do it again. So let me actually stop my screen sharing. Stop that. And I'm just going to pull the 5 techniques onto the page. Just give me 2 seconds here. Boop, boop. Come on, drag and drop. Please work today. There we are. So I'm just dragging a file on here because we can drag literally anything onto here pretty much. PDFs, files, all that kind of stuff. And it's nicely uploaded. I will make it much larger so you can actually see it, or feel free to zoom on in. And these are called basically 5 flash techniques. And this is a lot of stuff based on the research of Dr. Elizabeth Stocco. I'm going to lock it onto the stage so it doesn't go drifting around the world, the universe here. But basically, these 5 techniques, and by the way, any of the stuff that we're talking about today, if you do want a copy of it, in the upper right-hand corner, I've put a little link to, it says Moving Minds. And if you click on that, there's actually a copy of the slides, a copy of the planning template we use for this, as well as some nice follow-up resources. Note, there is one fun little glitch. When you click on the link that goes to our slides, it's going to say, no, we can't open that. It's blocked. Just copy and paste it to a new browser tab. Chrome likes to be funny when you're linking from an embed. Sometimes it gets a little funky, but I promise the link does work. You just need to copy and paste it to a new tab, and you can actually download a copy of all these slides and materials I'm talking about, as well as my LinkedIn's there if you got any follow-up questions. But basically, in a dialogue where we're trying to collaborate, trying to influence, trying to sell, trying to innovate, instead of spending all this time in this red, yellow back and forth, what we really want to be doing is going to the blue zone more. And fundamentally, we don't spend a lot of time there. We think we do. But there's a profound difference between me saying, I understand you, Pinky, and Pinky's going, yeah, not really. There's a big difference between me telling Pinky or telling Oscar I understand them, and them actually going, yeah, Joshua, you really understand me. So when we actually take a look at this, the 5 techniques are follow up and listen and label. Basically, not just responding immediately, but working with the information we've given. So not exploring just the position that they're saying, but how did they get there? So, Oscar's saying that he wants to go to this particular location, or, Danny's saying he wants to go to Hawaii. That's a position, but why does he want to go there? Exploring sort of his criteria and building that shared common ground around criteria is going to be a way faster, way more successful way to begin to move the conversation forward, rather than to get stuck just on this position debate. Part of this is also listening and labeling, not just what's being said, but the subtext of under what's being said. Does he sound excited? Does she sound concerned? Not just ignoring that, but actually bringing that to the surface for greater exploration. The second half is really towards that building common ground, going back to that Covey idea that people are not willing to understand till they feel understood. And that's where we really want to acknowledge and agree, as well as summarize and paraphrase. Acknowledge and agree is basically the more areas you can agree on, the more things where you're like, oh yeah, we both agree that we want to have an affordable offsite, or an offsite with really good food. The more things we can agree on, the less those areas of differentiation seem to be really critical. Summarizing, this would be me saying to Danny, if I understand correctly, what you're saying is X, Y, Z. And Danny can either say to me, no, not exactly, Joshua, and give me more information, which is great for positive persuasion. Or he can say yes, and he can feel understood. And then from there, he can either move to listening to me in the yellow zone, or together we can take things into that mutual problem solving if we're truly getting stuck, which is that last bit of help me to help you. Basically, this is inviting people to problem solve. It's the difference between having a debate of what is true versus a question that we can ask each other, what would need to be true for us to consider moving in a different direction? So fundamentally, although this was a slightly silly debate about 3 offsite locations that we had in our breakouts and then we had on this main stage here, it really underpins a lot of the challenges that we have in conversation. And SpatialChat is just one of those really lovely tools that you can use to make those conversations a lot more visible, and to do so in a way that allows people to much more organically move around rather than just be, stuck in a simple Zoom window. So with that, what I'd actually like to encourage you to do is to spread out again to far corners of the room. Try to get a group of about 2, 3, 4 people. If you get noise pollution, again, spread on out as far as possible. And I'd like you to think about your own conversations. What do you do in your conversations at work, in life, etc., to really try to go to the blue zone? But also not just in terms of what you're saying, but how you're structuring your meetings, how you're structuring your engagements. How are you shaping spaces for deeper dialogue and deeper exploration? So I'd like you to please head to your little side conversations. I'll be wandering. We'll do that for a couple minutes, and then we'll be closing out with some final thoughts. So again, what do you do to go to the blue? both in terms of the back and forth dialogue, but also how you shape your spaces at your meetings and stuff like that. Deep apologies to that. But I hope you've enjoyed playing with some of these techniques today, getting to play with SpatialChat for those who have not gotten to play with it before. I was asked in one of the breakouts, the little bubbles or campsites that we set up at, what I'm personally using this for. And for me, it's always that question of shaping spaces. So I do a lot of work with Miro. I do a lot of work with Zoom. I do a lot of work with things like SpatialChat. And it really depends the kind of conversations you want to create. If you're trying to create a more open space conversation where people are able to freely move, to network, to go and problem solve and have that sort of open space dialogue, then this is a wonderful way to shape those spaces. But at the same time, being able to step in and do things like this, where I'm broadcasting to all of you right now, to be, what kind of clients are the minimum for this stuff? What do you mean by minimum, Keys? In terms of size? Because I've seen this used with like nonprofits, NGOs, all the way up through much larger clients. So it really depends. I believe Danny will correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, Windows Chromebooks. Oh, that's a really good question on that. I know that it works best in Chrome as in terms of the browser. I have not tried it on a Chromebook itself. But it's I would say that the requirements of it are they're not, anytime you've got video, it's not going to be low. Anytime you got video, it's not going to be low. You can choose, depending on how many embedded things you do and how much stuff you're putting on there, you can make things lower latency and not, but that's not the case with SpatialChat. If I'm using Miro, it's the same thing. If I put up like a bunch of like 20, 30 megabyte files, it's going to be slow for low bandwidth environments. So I'm always careful about how much I'm loading to make sure that it actually works with pretty much everyone. So that's the good question there. So yeah, just to close on out, and I'm happy to answer any questions you got. Basically, in our conversations, I'm a big believer. Lenny Scott Weber says, if the space doesn't give you permission to change, it's too easy to revert back to what we know. And I think fundamentally we need to think about this. We don't want to be like the Choluteca Bridge. This was a bridge. It's a real bridge that was in Honduras, and it was built, you feel free to Google this, it's a fun story. It was built to withstand hurricanes, and it did. It withstood hurricanes. So you got this beautiful bridge, withstood the hurricane, but the hurricane was so strong that the river actually moved out from underneath it. So we had this bridge, which is no longer crossing a river. And way too oftentimes, our conversations are like that. We've got this perfect logical argument of exactly why we're right, why everyone should do what we're suggesting. But because we're not listening to the river of the conversation as it moves out from underneath us, what we end up with is something that's perfectly logical, but no longer really serves a purpose. So we need to really step back and think, how can we work with what we're given and not with just what we're bringing to the table? And SpatialChat, along with other things, is a really good tool to help make some of those conversations a lot more visible, because then we can move and begin to change in a new direction. Yeah, so thanks everybody for coming on out, playing around with this environment here, just experimenting with a lot of stuff here in terms of shared dialogue and all that kind of fun stuff. Stick around if you got questions, but otherwise, very, very happy to have you all here. Thank you.